What is up, guys? Welcome back to Case Digital. My name is Zach. In today's video, we are answering the question of how to do sentiment analysis in Python. This comes at a request of one of you. And so without further ado, let's hop right in and start talking about the packages that we need to do so that we can do sentiment analysis. All right, so the package that we're going to use, or the main package that we're going to use for this, this video here is essentially going to be the NLTK package. This is one that you're going to have to pip install to download. So again, like I always do, I highly recommend you use a virtual environment like I am doing here. You can also go watch another, some of my previous videos that I have about virtual environments and why I feel they're important and how to install or create one. Essentially, if you don't have one, I'll just break it down. You just need to do Python-v and then -m and then venv and then the name that you want to do. For example, I called mine zenv. Oftentimes people call it env. Now I already have one, so I'm not going to do this. Once you do have that though, you do need to do something like source, and then from your thing you need to just say, like, if you did env or znv like I have here, and I need to go back to where I actually did it. So wherever you put it you need to source it from that. So I have it a couple folders back. So z, and then you'll need to do, on a Windows, you'll do scripts like this, like with a capital S, and on Mac or Linux, you'll do bin and activate, and then you'll just activate it. Now, again, you can tell that mine's activated due to the fact that I have it showing up over here. Once all that's done, you'll need to go and do pip install NLTK, stands for Natural Language Toolkit, and I already have it, so it should just say everything's already installed. So it says, yeah, all of the packages that are needed for it are installed. Now, we have our package that we need. Now we just need to go up here and we need to import it. So I always like to import OS with some of these things just so that we can use some of the OS functionalities. That's a built-in Python one, so use it how you want, and import NLTK. So now within the NLTK, so this request that I got was essentially, hey, I want to do some sentiment analysis, but I want to do it on individual words. And through the research of the individual, they said, hey, I found that the SentiWordNet has the ability to provide the scores for individual words. So that way I can separate them into lists and, get a list of positive scores, neutral scores, and, positive words, neutral words, and kind of more negative words. So to do that, we actually need to import a few other libraries from the NLTK package so that we can show, so that we can use that. So the additional packages that we need to do are the WordNet package and the SentiWordNet package. So that way we can use that specific SentiWordNet package to do all of the sentiment analysis for our words. So we're going to do, from NLTK dot, and I think it's Orbis, import, I'll say WordNet, and then as I guess the common, I was looking this up doing some research, and the common way people do is they just call it WN, and then from NLTK.Corbis import SentiWordNet, and then people call this as WSN. For those of you that don't know, when you do when you import something, you usually have to say something like, for example, I wanted to use NLTK, like I have to use NLTK dot whatever. But oftentimes when you do the as, so like you do import as WN, now you can reference it in your code, like this package as, WN, or like the SentiWordNet package as, or module as SWN. And then from here, there's also another one that we're going to do, and we'll use this later. Based off my research and findings, it's useful to have this. So we're going to say from NLTK.stem import, I think it's the WordNet, the WordNet lemanticizer. I can't even say it. Lemanticizer. So from that, now we have all the things that are imported. Now we have to go ahead and get this up and running and to test and see how well it works. This is something that I found when I was doing my research and testing of different things. This was a kind of a pain in the butt to get going. And I'm going to show you the things that I found to help make it work so that it gets all the NLTK stuff downloaded and working the way that you want it to. So now that we have all this stuff, like I said, sometimes getting this stuff to work and getting all the download stuff was a pain in the butt, because if you look online and everything, it basically just tells you that you need to download things like the WordNet or SentiWordNet, like all of their data, so that you can use. So that's what it does, like all of its analysis on, and that's where it helps get all those scores from. And to do that, they say, hey, do NLTK dot download, right? And ideally, this you'd only have to do one time, or you could run it every time just to make sure that if there is a new set of data that's been updated, that you're getting the latest and greatest. And you can use like a shell, a GUI, or I just use download. And the thing is when you do this download, it'll put it in a specific spot on your computer. But I always like to know, I like to know where download data goes from, because one, if I'm dealing with a lot of data for different projects, like it can eat up a lot of memory on my computer, and I don't want that. And so oftentimes I'll put it in a specific spot where I know, hey, this is related to this project. So that way I can go clean it up ever if I want. Or if I'm never done with that project, it's really nice and easy to clean up and I don't have to worry about it. And so to do that, you have to say like, hey, what you want to download. And it tells you like, give it the ID or the information what you want. And we want to do the SentiWordNet. And I want to download it. And from what I found, it needs to be something like, it needs to have the base name of NLTK _ data, right? So what I'm telling it to do is in this folder that we're in, the sentiment analysis folder on my computer, download this data into this location here. So basically it'll create this folder and then put the SentiWordNet stuff here. Now, if I run this, we should, if I remember right, last time I did this, we'll do this. So we'll reset this and we'll do Python, how to do sentiment analysis. And it takes a minute, it's going to download it. And just like that, you can see, if I come over here and open this up, here's my sentiment analysis folder. And look, there's my NLTK data folder. And inside that, it downloaded all of that stuff and put it there, right? So from here, you would think, hey, let's go ahead and do some sentiment analysis, right? So from that, we can start trying to do that. I'm going to show you. I'm going to go set up some things, show you how to, what you can do, and then I'm going to show you kind of the stuff that I ran into that caused some of the issues. All right, so if we continue forward, I'm just going to set up the Lementicizer now, and because I can never spell, I'm just going to do copy and paste for the win, and equals to WordNet Lementicizer. Now, essentially, all this is going to do is this is going to help us reduce a word in its different form, like or whether it's plural or past or whatever, and it's going to bring it down to like the root of the word. So, for example, if you got something like dogs, as the documentation says, or dogs, it's going to bring it down to dog. Churches to churches, and then if it doesn't have one, say like Hard Rock here is their example, it's just going to give you return back that same word, right? So if it can't lementicize it, it's just going to give us back the word. Otherwise, it's going to get us down to the root word. That's essentially all this is for. Now, in the request that was given by the individual who said, hey, I need help, wanting to do this for, getting the sentiment analysis for an individual word, they provided essentially a list of stuff that they, some basic words that they had. Now, I'm just going to use some of those words that they had stated. Granted, this list could be even longer, it could be even shorter, or whatnot. But essentially, I have this file called test words. And it just has these 9 words in it. Beautiful, joyful, upset, dog, snake, friend, charming, misunderstand, and fun, right? So these are the words that we're going to read in and going to perform a sentiment analysis on each of these individual words to see what it's going to produce, right? So to do that, we're going to read in from a file. I have a full video on how to read from files, but essentially it's what we're going to do right here. So I'm just going to say words is going to be equal to a list. And then I'm going to say with open, and we're going to say the path to the file. Now, this words is right here in my folder. So because of that, I can get away with doing the syntax of // meaning within where I'm going to run this script from. Gotta be careful because you could run the script from a different spot and then use the syntax and it would fail. So ideally, nice to provide full paths, but in this case, I'm just going to say // meaning the relative path, meaning right here in this folder that's being ran from or assumed to be ran from, there is a folder called testwords.txt, and we're going to read from it, and then I'm going to give it as stream. And then just say words is equal to stream.readlines. Now, we could do 2 different things here. I could do read lines, I could do read and do a different thing. I kind of want to show you as we're going through this because it's kind of a nice little project that has a lot of different of the basics that I've been teaching here on this channel and kind of summarized into one. So if we print out words, if you do read lines, this is what it's going to show. Again, we do the download thing here, so it's going to try and download or update. If it's already updated, it's going to update. Otherwise, you see each one of these words has the new line character at the end. That's not necessarily what we want, right? Now, if I do read, we're just going to get a string, right? I'm just going to get a string that looks like this, but it's because the new lines are hidden, and so it's just one big string. Now, what I can do is I can do read, and I can do .split, and I can split on the new line, and now I get a list of words that is no new line character is within the thing. Now, I could also do read lines and then do some list comprehension to go clean up the new lines, but this is pretty clean, so we're just going to leave this as it is. So from here, now we need to perform, now that we have our words, now we need to start looping through the words, right? Because we're going to perform this, we want to get a sentiment analysis for each one of these words, whether it's going to be negative, neutral, or positive. Now, the way that I read it, SentiWordNet, how it does its scoring is essentially anything that's less than 0 is negative, and anything that's 0 is neutral, and anything that's above 0 is positive. So that's kind of how they score it. So if we come back and say we get a word that's beautiful, ideally you would think that this word would be above 0, right? And possibly with joyful. Upset, you would think would probably be more negative. Dog, since it's a noun, I mean, dog is a man's best friend, right? So maybe that's positive, but since it's just kind of representing an animal, maybe it's just neutral. So we'll find that out as we go. But to do this setup, essentially we're going to set up our for loop. And to do that, we're just going to say for, and then word in words, and then we can just say print the word, right? We can do an F string word. And if we run that, we should just print all of these out with a colon, right? Because I'm going to do some other stuff there. So that's kind of setting up and reading in our file structure, or getting all our words into the application so that we can now perform sentiment analysis on them. All right, so now that we know that we are going through each word and we can print it out, we need to now go take our lamentizer that we set up before and get that root word, just in case for whatever reason one of the words in your list or in our list, like charming goes to like charm, or whatever the case may be, or whatever it feels like that kind of root word is. So let's go ahead and do that. So we're going to call this the lem, because that's, I think, what people called it when I was doing my research, or commonly called it. It's equal to our lamentizer dot and then we're going to give it our word. Make sure that's correct. There you go. Yeah, the nice thing about using an IDE is sometimes sometimes it shows up, sometimes it doesn't. But you can always use these helpful things to like do dot and then control space and like especially in VS Code to give you kind of like help you give out the list of functions or variables or whatever that you want. Now, from here, I'm going to pass in, this is going to take, say, the word and the position. Now, or not, the POS, which stands for the part of speech tag. Now, what it's saying here is if you don't provide anything, it's going to default to the noun of that, or where N stands for noun. And the part of speech is, oftentimes when you're doing sentiment analysis, when I found this, it's analyzing, you take the sentence or whatever, probably the sentence that you're looking at, and then you break that down to the individual parts, such as your adjectives, your verbs, your nouns, all those different things. And there's a lot of tools that go out and help you do that, because that helps give it context of how the word is being used, which then has, results to the definition values of could play an effect on whether the positive score, whether it's more positive or more negative or more neutral. And so in our case for right now, we're just going to pass in our word. And then we're going to print this out. So we're just going to say print, and I'm going to give a couple spaces, 1, 2, 3, 4, and we're going to say the lem is equal to that. So that way we can just see you'll have our base word, and then everything under that will kind of break down and show you like the lem form of it, its scores, and all that different stuff. So we do this. We run it, we see that, this is the first error that I was talking about. So what if we scroll it in, we see that, hey, it ran into an error because it was trying to use look up and do some stuff with our WordNet package. And it couldn't do it. It said, hey, I think you need to download. And this is what's nice about this NLTK package is it tells you kind of like, hey, you need to download this package. This is what's wrong, right? So basically, if we went back up to our thing and we tried the exact same thing, and we can just say, hey, okay, well, it was missing that. And so we'll just go ahead and try and download again. But then we'll just put it where we downloaded everything. So we got that. So now if we rerun this, let's see if we get that same error. Okay, we ran into that error again. Do we need to download something else? So now we're going to scroll back up here and say, hey, you need to download WordNet. Well, we just downloaded WordNet, right? And this is where it got kind of annoying and kind of was a pain in the butt because I wasn't sure what was going on. Well, what turns out is when you start to get multiple of these different packages and even when you start to use them is you need to tell NLTK package where all this stuff is, like where this folder is. Because you can see down here, it's saying, hey, I've searched in all of these different locations that I feel that it should be in or where it normally is. And it looks like you're different. You know, you put something in there in a different spot, so please tell me where it is. So to do that, we need to do something like NLTK dot path, dot data dot path dot append, and then we need to put in our location of NLTK underscore data, right? So now if I run this, it looks like everything is up to date and it's working. And so now what we see that after adding that path, if we go through each of our words, and even at the beginning, because again, if you have this in your script anywhere at any point, it'll always go to download the package and then check whether it needs updating, which is all this words right here. And now we got our word beautiful. The lem is beautiful. For joyful, apparently the lem is joy. Upset is upset. Dog is dog. Snake is snake. Friend is friend. Charming is still charming. Misunderstood is misunderstood, and fun is fun. So nothing really changed for us, right? Now I could go in here and I could put like dogs, because that was the example they gave, right? So that should change in their documentation. So if I run this again, check all the packages, go through each one of them, and we get, look, dog says now dog, right? So that's just what it's doing with some of them. So now that we have all of our lem words, now let's start talking about what we need to do or how we can go get our scores, like our sentiment analysis scores. So to start getting our sentiment analysis score for each one of our words using our lem, what we're going to do is get what's called a cinnamon set or a synonym set. Not cinnamon, where it's basically a set of words that is similar to that of what we have, right? Or synonyms and stuff like that. So like vehicle and automobile, stuff like that are similar, right? So to do that, we're going to create a variable called Synsets. It's equal to, and I'm going to create a list of it because this returns back usually what's called filter. So we're going to say from WordNet, give us our Synsets of our lem. And oftentimes, I think English is the default, but just in case, we're going to say language is going to be equal to ENG, right, for English, right? So to do this, if I then run this again, we can print out 2, 3, 4, and then we can say Synsets is equal to that. So if we run this, give a space there, and it's going to start running for each one of these. Going to go look up all the data from our packages. And look, just like that, you can see that we get a synonym set for each one of these. So like, for example, we have fun. It's just going to be fun with several different definitions and playfulness. Now, what I've found when I'm doing some of this research, some of this is kind of like their naming or their naming type convention for all together, where it's like, here's the name. And is going to be like what form of word this is. So like, is it a noun, an adjective, a verb? And then like, I think this is just if there's multiple of the same actual name, like fun, these 01, 02 are just going to be the different definition versions of those, right? And then like you can see here, like we have for our word fun, you also get something like playfulness, right? It looks like for misunderstand, there's only one, and it says a verb. And then charming has capture, charm, charming, and stuff like that. The S, I believe, is an adjunct adjective, meaning it's an adjective of a noun, but it's not together in a sentence. Again, I suck at getting grammar and all that type of stuff, but this is just from the stuff I've been learning as I've been putting all this stuff together, right? And then we get friend, has friend, ally, acquaintance, supporter, friend with a different definition. Those all appear to be nouns. And we get snake with several definitions, some being nouns, some being verbs, it looks like. And then we get dog, several definitions, frump, verbs, nouns, different sets. Looks like we get with upset, we have a lot of different definitions, right? Joyful has several or a couple, as well as beautiful has several as well. And again, this A is adjective, S is an adjunct adjective or whatnot, or adjective adjacent or something. I can't remember. But it still represents sort of like an adjective. So now that we have all of those, let's actually start gathering information from that so that we can now get our scores. So now that we have a list of all of our Synsets, we either can use all those to help give us the an average score out of all of that, or we can just use one of those to give us to help give us our sentiment analysis score for our word that we're trying to test, right? Now, oftentimes I've seen people when they do this, they can do one or the other, but what they really do is they use the first one, because from what I was reading and researching is like the first one is supposed to be the most common one. Correct me if I'm wrong on this, but that's what kind of I saw people do, is they were saying like the Synset that they used was going to be the Synset is equal to Synsets. Oops. And then they just said of 0, right? Because that was the most common one. And from here, we can now run and get the sentiment, or we can now go and analyze this by using the following. So we can do SWN, SentiSet, and then we pass in our SentiSet and we say give it the name, and we then say give it the POS, or the understanding of what, given that sentiment analysis, what is it is it the noun, is it the verb, is it an adjective or whatnot. And so if we run, just kind of see, I guess what I'm talking about too is when we do this, if we print these out, you'll see what we're going to use for this. So there's that, and then pose. So now if we run this for each one of them, and I'll just comment out this Synsets because we don't need to see all of them, right? But we bring this up. Now you can see that for each one of these, it's saying, hey, the lem is beautiful. We'll just go with fun. So for fun, the lem is fun. The name is fun.1, fun.n.01, and then its type is a noun. Now from here, we have this new, what we've done here in this line of code is we've essentially analyzed our word, right? And I want to show you, if you essentially print out, you get this object back and you're like, well, what the heck is this, right? We can essentially do vars of that. We run this again, and you'll see this should give us the object that contains all the information regarding the scores for our word. So if we look at this very closely, we'll go all the way up to the top. Our lem is beautiful. The name is this. This is the one that we're using. It's an adjective. And look, our score is saying that out of the positive score, it's a 0.75. Negative is 0. Objective, meaning neutral, is 0.25, right? All these scores for our thing have to add up to 1. So between the 3 different categories of positive or negative, positive, and neutral, they all have to add up to 1. And so you can see here, we get a positive score of 0.75, and then the rest is in the object score, or the neutral side. So joyful, look, it has a positive score of 0.15, but for whatever reason, in their definition of this, look, it says it's got a negative score of 0.625, right? And an objective score of 0.25. So again, all of these things come from the data set that is within that is downloaded. That's why when you run these, it's trying to and it runs this part up here where it goes and downloads all the data. It's trying to update it to see if there's new information based off what you have. So that way, maybe there's new research or new things that show that, hey, now joyful should be more positive than negative. Again, this is pulling from all their data. So why when you see the word joyful by itself, it gets a more negative score than a positive score? I don't know. But that's just kind of coming from the data that SentiWordNet has, right? Upset, as you would think, it gets more of a negative score, but it's also has some neutrality score, right? Dog, completely neutral by this Synsets definition. It's completely neutral. Snake, more neutral than it is negative. So that's kind of interesting there. And then friend, again, it's more positive, or it has some positive score, but it's also more neutral. But so these are just across the different categories. Now from this, what you could do is, or what people do now is from all this information, what they end up doing is they do, I'm just going to print this out. Their analysis score is determined, apparently, this is from what I was reading, is determined off of, and again, this is not an exact science, basically from all the stuff and everything I was researching. Again, I highly recommend as you go out this, you go do some of your own research and find this, but this is the most common practice that I saw of getting the analysis score, or the sentiment analysis score, was where they did something like SWN.Synset.pause score, minus the SWN Synset.neg score. And this right here by sentiment is equal to that. So if I rerun all this again, you'll see that the sentiment score, because we're just doing positive minus negative, it's not taking into account neutrality, right? Is that, whereas for this one, it's negative, misunderstood as a negative, which meaning it's less than, right? 0, so that means it's more negative. This meaning it's more positive because it's above 0. And then you get something like dog, which we saw before, is going to be 0. And so that's kind of where it's more neutral, right? And so this is kind of how they said sentiment analysis is calculated based off all the examples and the things that I saw online. Now, again, I just was searching online, so there might be some more research and stuff out there that kind of explicitly tell you exactly how to calculate the scores. But from what I was reading, this is not an exact science. Again, if I'm wrong on this, I'm learning this as well because I am also interested. So please leave in the comments below any corrections or any thoughts that you have. But essentially from here, if we were going back to the original request where the individual asked, hey, I have all these words, I want to go now and categorize them into a neutral list, a negative list, and a positive list, what we could do is come back all the way to the top. Positive words is equal to this, and we'll do negative words and neutral words, right? And what we could do is essentially take this score and we can do something like this. And again, I could just, for cleaning up the code a little bit sake, right? You should always limp your code. Do something like that. So it says that, and then we can just say if score is greater than 0, do a positive words dot append, and then we can just say the word. And else if score is less than 0, then we're going to put in the negative words. And otherwise, we should account for the 0 case, right? Otherwise, it's going to be to the neutral words. And just like that. Now at the end of our program, come back out, we can say print words, and we'll make this an F string. So we can do something like this, and just copy this a couple more times. Can't spell bad. I want to say bad words, right? All right, so we run all this, and then we end up with the final result of this task was basically say, out of this list that we have, what are the more positive sentiment words? What are the bad words? What are the neutral words, right? And we end up with, and I will do something like this so that we get kind of like a clear distinction times 80, and that'll print out this nice little line. So go through each one of those, and just like that, we get, here's all our positive words, here's all of our bad words, or our negative words, which again, that joyful one still surprises me. But what I've found too is it also depends on what you include, because sometimes some people say that they only want to look at, when they analyze a word, they only want to look at, if it belongs to, say, an adjective or a verb or a noun, and not necessarily if it belongs to something like like more of the common words like the or an adverb or stuff like that. So so your score, depending on how much you include, could be more. But in our case, we're just taking the first sentiment, right, or the first Synset, and we're just saying use that. Now, like we saw when we printed out all the Synsets before, there's some of these definitions that are both nouns and verbs, which could have a different score. And that's where I'm probably going to leave it as a challenge to you to see how you can take basically this code, and rather than just get the Synset here, is maybe loop through, hint, hint, all the other Synsets and create an average Synset score and print that out and see if that provides anything different, right? And if you want me to go through and do something like that, leave that in the comment below, and I'll just create another video to show you how to do that. But essentially, I want to leave that as a challenge to you in your programming journey, because we're all here to learn. And you can see, like, this is kind of a bigger video and a longer video that I've done. And essentially, I kind of want to work through all the things that I learned as I was going through this, because I'm not an expert when it comes to doing sentiment analysis, right? I'm learning it just as you are, and I'm just providing the information that I learned to you to hopefully help you along your programming journey on the things that you're trying to accomplish. And this is kind of all the things I've learned, everything from encountering all the different things that I needed to import and download, appending the path, because that was a gotcha that I couldn't figure out for about 20 minutes until I did a lot of Google searching and all that type of stuff. And then, hey, why do you need a lemanticizer, and why do you need to do that, and why is it powerful? Because one, it just kind of brings it down to that root word and helps you get a word that you can get all of these Synsets on to actually get a score for, right? And then just kind of walking you through of all the things that I had to do, like how do you get the Synsets so that you can then calculate the word, to down to here's the actual line of code that does their analysis, right? Once we have all of it, all of the data cleaned up, and then here is what gives us our score, and then from that we can use that score to help us filter out the words into the different categories. So I hope you found this video helpful. There is a lot of nuggets in here on different things that you can do within Python. Again, we tackled a bigger problem, but we've learned, we've dealt with things like how to append to a list, how to do math, how to import functions, how to convert stuff to lists, all that type of stuff. So I hope you found this valuable. If you did, please hit the like button below, or hit the like button below. Subscribe if you haven't subscribed. And again, please leave comments like this. If you have video ideas or you had questions about different parts of this piece of code, let me know. I'm more than happy to answer it. And until next time, keep on programming.